The dark web can be like a restaurant for identity thieves.
Hi, ready to order?
I'll have the driver's license number.
Great, that comes with a home address or a birth date.
Ooh, both, please.
It can be dangerously easy to steal your identity. LifeLock by Norton makes it easy to help protect yourself. If you become a victim, we'll work to fix it. No one can monitor all transactions, but everyone can save up to 25% off their first year at LifeLock.com/aware. Identity theft protection starts here.
Hello, everybody. How we doing? Happy Wednesday. Happy week 3. What's going on? It's time for the Roto World RotoGrinders DFS Pick 6. We're going to get to our new man here in just a second. But first, we're going to start off with John Daigle, who is now suddenly you're the old guy on the show, aren't you?
Well, I am the old guy, or was the old guy, but it turns out we have a very special friend and guest. So I am not only not the oldest anymore, I have the fewest kids on the show. That is true.
To be fair, though, because our special guest is here, no matter who's here, they're going to have the fewest kids. Because, Rich Hribar, he has like 17 kids. Rich Hribar joining us for week 3. Look at Rich coming in here. He looks like he's coming straight from the Amish community. What's up, Reeves? How we doing, man?
I'm doing real good. It was Monday. I was at home. It was late at night. I looked out the window. I saw the Zach Morris avatar in the sky. The red phone on my desk rang, and it was Dan back. Dan said, Reeves, I can't get Rod Woodson. I can't get Charles Woodson. I can't get any other of the Woodsons, but I need someone that's familiar with the pick 6 to come in and tag in and come back. And I said, Dan, let me throw on my Enrique Iglesias Enrique album. And if you guys aren't familiar with the Enrique album, that was his 4th studio album, his first U.S. album. And I threw on track 10. And track 10 just happens to be a little song called Bailamos, which translates to Let's Dance. So I let the rhythm take me over, and I told Dan, I'll be back. I'm coming now from Sharp Football, though.
Yep.
So, but it's good to be back. So I do get a little quick plug in for Sharp Football. If you guys aren't familiar and can't find the worksheet, I get tweets. Where's the worksheet?
How many of those tweets do you get a week?
A few, at least several still. I'm sure Evan gets the same too. Looking for matchups, but you can find it at Sharp Football Analysis. And part of me coming on is that we're allowing RotoGrinders a little promo here for you guys at RotoGrinders. So if you go over to Sharp Football Analysis and you put in Sharp 25, you can get 25% off any of the subs you desire, whether it be the fantasy package to get the worksheet, the prop betting package, the Warren's betting picks, or all the above. You can catch yourself a little discount there. But I'm happy to be back with you guys.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. I love what you guys are doing over at Sharp Football. I use, I think, 3 different sites, and that's one of them. So, much appreciated. I'm glad you could come on, man. It's really good to see your face. Before we get into the games, I got to ask, what the hell is that beard?
I'm trying to make it a year, so I just want to see what's going on.
Wait, hold on. You've been growing that for a year?
No, since March.
Okay.
So I'm just want to see if I can make it a year. Us folks that live from home and have no outside connection to the real life, I figured why not.
I just do it to compensate. I don't try to do it.
That's how I am, man. Like us fat boys, we got to have the beard. Otherwise, it just looks like you have like 7 faces on. It's not good. I don't know what you guys are doing. Like, you guys just have beards because you feel like it. Reeves, I don't know how you're going to do a year. I did the Stanley Cup playoff beard. The playoffs lasted about 2.5 months because my Blues won the final, and it was awful. Like, I'm just running around like I'm a meth addict or something, just scratching everything. It was rough, man. So props to you for rocking the beard. So let's go ahead and jump into the games. Of course, we got 3 games, 3 topics. We're going to talk first game, and it is the one game that everybody's going to be watching. It's the Ravens at the Chiefs. It's a total of 53. The Chiefs 7-point favorites. And Reeves, I'm going to start with you, man. Let's talk about this Baltimore offense, because we saw Lamar Jackson last season as a guy who everybody said, well, he can't throw the ball. He's just a running back playing quarterback, to a dude now who's just straight up lighting it up every time he's out there. So talk to us about this Ravens offense, Rich.
Yeah, I mean, he's just had a great start to a great slate of games to open, and he gets another one here, against the Chiefs defense. I mean, if there's one place none of us want Jalen Ramsey to get traded to, it's the Chiefs. We don't want to ruin this golden goose of teams going back and forth on scoreboard against each other, although we didn't get it last week. But, I think when they lost that playoff game last year to the Chargers, and it was a team that they faced for the second time, it was the only team that they faced twice with Lamar Jackson as a starter. And the way the Chargers were able to recalibrate, kind of stop their offense, I think that they went into this offseason really focused on being able to, use Lamar Jackson in all capacities of, running an offense. And he was a guy that got better as a passer all 4 years at Louisville as well. So, I mean, should have been, at least an inkling that, he still could improve. And then they went out this offseason and just acquired a ton of offensive speed, around him. So, I mean, they're really running like a fun offense that's catered to him. And like I said, they did face the Dolphins and the Cardinals. So, I mean, not much resistance has put up. We hope that we don't get that here. These two teams did play last year in his fourth career start. He only completed 13 passes in that game, but he still had 19 fantasy points. So we know that, there's more of a ceiling here based on what we saw from him these first two games and him being able to get over that, 250 passing yardage mark. And he already has more passing touchdowns than he did all of last year when he was the starter in the regular season. So, I mean, I think it's a situation where we keep riding Lamar. I think the dynamics of this game are interesting is because since Lamar took over last year, from that point on last year, they just dominated the opposition in plays per game. And that's how it started so far this year. You even look at it when they played Arizona last week. Arizona in week 1 ran 67 plays in regulation against the Lions. They only ran 54 last week against the Ravens. The only game that the Ravens under Lamar Jackson haven't run more plays than their opponent so far is when they played the Chiefs last year, and the Chiefs ran 73 plays against them. So it's going to be real interesting to see if the Chiefs can really kind of get up on them and, control script and, really, utilize their offense like they did last year. Because Mahomes threw for 380 in that game. They threw 9 completions to running backs in that game. Kelsey got off. He doesn't have Tyreek Hill at 14 targets in that game. But yeah, it's going to be real interesting to see if Baltimore can really play their style of just dominating plays on a team that, one, doesn't need a lot of plays to score, and 2, was able to get over on them last year in the same situation.
Yeah, go ahead.
That is what the show was missing. That 5-minute monologue with just stats rolling off like the Jericho script meme. Like he was just going. Like that's what the show needed right there.
With how my voice is, I'm just glad I didn't have to talk for a few minutes. That was really pretty amazing. So, John, when we, like Reeves was saying, this is really just kind of, I don't want to say a can't miss spot because, again, this Ravens offense has had a couple cupcakes to start the year. But if we look at Lamar Jackson and the way this game script should be going, he should have to be airing it out here, John. I don't know about you, but in DFS, I'm going to have a tough time playing anybody but these two quarterbacks.
And it's tough to fade this game overall, even if you wanted to. Not only the pace of play that works out for both offenses, but the Ravens have to keep up. And the Chiefs, not that we're worried about any defensive match for them whatsoever this season, as long as Patrick Mahomes is under center. But this game opened at 51, got bet up to 55.5, has since trailed down to whatever book you look at, 53 or 52.5. And I think the Ravens defense is still getting too much credit. I did say, or we were confident Arizona was going to be able to move the ball. I didn't think they'd cover actually, but I didn't think they'd struggle in having offensive production, and they didn't because we are still looking at last year's Ravens defensive stats. But you take a look at their offseason, they lost C.J. Mosley, Darius Smith, Eric Weddle, Terrell Suggs. They added Earl Thomas, which does matter, especially in this game where the Chiefs try to go over the top a lot, but it's still a weaker defense, especially in the front seven. So it's one that matches up. Basically, everyone on the Chiefs can have production, especially if we get Damian Williams and LaShawn McCoy hobbled, even if they play. If they come out hobbled, like you can sneak value in there on the back end between Darwin Thompson as well.
Yeah, one of the guys you didn't even mention with the Ravens, Jimmy Smith, out with an injury. And we've seen this for years with Baltimore. If Jimmy Smith is out, other teams are going to have success for the year, especially on the outside. You mentioned Sammy Watkins and Mecole Hardman. Those are my two favorite plays on the whole slate. And, Reeves, let's talk about these other Chief guys because obviously Patrick Mahomes, he's the premier quarterback play on the slate. I don't think anybody would argue with that. I like Watkins. I like Hardman, Kelsey. I don't really have anybody I don't like on this Chiefs team. What about you?
Yeah, pretty similar. I think the running back situation is just kind of up in air, just based on we don't know what's going to happen towards the end of the week. With us doing the show on Wednesday, and neither Damian Williams and LaShawn McCoy practicing yet. We're going to have to wait and see kind of how that shakes out. But I mean, yeah, John kind of touched upon it, and you echoed it with Jimmy Smith being out. And so far, they've given up a lot of splash plays in the passing game. 25% of the completions allowed by the Ravens so far have gone for 20 more yards through 2 weeks. That's only ahead of the Bengals and the Raiders. We know a team's going to stack 20-yard completions, and that's the Chiefs. Through Watkins, Kelsey, and then Hardman and Demarcus Robinson. I mean, there's just speed on both sides of the field in this game. Just big vertical targets. It's what we like. I mean, both these teams are first and second in touchdowns from outside of the red zone to start the season. So, I mean, Watkins had kind of the letdown last week. Efficiency regression kind of set in real quick for him. But he still led the team once again with 13 targets, which was 30%. Second on the team in air yards. Last week, McCole Hardman had a 72-yard touchdown call back in that game. He could have had a second one. Demarcus Robinson actually was the guy who popped last week. Their routes run were about even. So, I mean, those guys are all going to be on the field. I think with the running backs being out, it just kind of funnels you to the receivers as having more ownership, because we don't know how we're going to handle this with the running backs yet. And like I said, last year they used the running backs heavily in the passing game again in this Ravens matchup. So, I mean, we'd like to get some clarity on that as the week progresses. But, I mean, it's pretty much, all thumbs up for, I think, both sides of the ball here. All the guys we've been playing so far through 2 weeks.
Yeah, and one of those big play guys on the other side, obviously Marquise Brown. He's priced at $5.9K this week. John, I have a feeling that people are still going to be shy about paying that price tag for Marquise Brown. And I'm convinced that here in a few weeks he's going to be $6,500 or $7K, because that's the guy he's going to continue to have big plays, who's going to continue to see targets, 13 targets last week. And at this price tag, in this game script, I love Marquise Brown this week. And if he's going to be lower on John, I love him even more.
He leads the Ravens in target share despite only playing around 40-50% of their offensive snaps. Like, this is a game now that basically requires him to play all of it, and he'll have a great matchup in the slot against Kendall Fuller. And it's just they have nowhere else to go really besides in the slot with Marquise Brown and then Mark Andrews, who, as we know, is also probably going to blow up in this game. Like, Miles Boykin is a great contrarian option, but Miles Boykin is still obviously developing. And he's also playing a limited number of snaps as they work him into the season as he develops as a rookie. So it's kind of I don't want to say you have to fade him, but it's the clear-cut option, even for cash games. If you're looking for a receiver that's going to undoubtedly blow up in this one, it's Marquise Brown.
And you mentioned Miles Boykin. I like him as a very sneaky option. Only $3K. If he was priced more, I wouldn't really have that much interest. But in $3K, that's all the upside in the world. Reeves, we haven't really talked much about the Baltimore running side. Mark Ingram, any interest there?
I mean, I think tournament only. Mark Ingram's just a guy I don't like to play in cash games because I don't like to play running backs that don't catch the football. But, I mean, he's also one of those guys that can also get you multiple touchdowns in a given game. And, with the success of Baltimore's running backs since Lamar has taken over, is pretty well documented. And, the Chiefs are allowing just a little under 6 yards per carry to opposing running backs so far to start the year. But, yeah, kind of just a tournament-only guy because of the lack of pass catching. And both him and Justice Hill are on the bottom of the league in targets per route run rate so far to start the season because, I mean, listen, man, Lamar's just boogie. If he ain't going to check it down, it's not really the MO. So, I mean, tournament only there for old Mark Ingram, too.
How did you not throw up the phrase Konami code when discussing this game?
I mean, it speaks for itself. Lamar has just kind of broken the Konami code. It used to exist as this thing for like Tim Tebow when it started. And Terrell Pryor was the guy I originally wrote the original article on. Just, about these bad quarterbacks where it used to be, kind of your old, in your father-in-law's league. I'm not playing that guy. He's a sucky quarterback. And, you say, well, it doesn't matter. He's getting these weighted, scoring opportunities for fantasy. And that's how it all started. But Lamar is kind of just broke the mold. I mean, Lamar had more rushing yards in college than Saquon Barkley. He's just a unique entity. We haven't had something like him really since Michael Vick, and he might be even like a step above Michael Vick.
Yeah, Michael Vick is the comp for him, and it's a lot of fun to watch. This is the game where this is must watch for me. I wish this game was in the late afternoon because I want fewer other games going on so I can focus on this one. Either way, though, this might be one of those 2-screen days where you have like one game focused on the Ravens-Chiefs game, the other game focused on Red Zone, and just enjoying yourself. All right, let's talk Panthers at Cardinals, 44.5, Arizona 2.5-point favorites at home. And John, this is one of those games where I don't think a lot of people are going to be paying attention to. Right now, we don't know if it's going to be Cam Newton or Kyle Allen. I'm I'm preparing as if it's going to be Kyle Allen because it does not look like Cam is going to be anywhere near the field or my fantasy teams. But when I look at this game, I see two teams that are two of the highest paced teams in all of football. I saw a stat, I forget who tweeted it out, but the Cardinals are running no huddle something like 56 or 58% of the time, something just crazy. So let's talk about this Panthers side first, because obviously everything revolves around Christian McCaffrey. Are we willing to play any of these receivers with him, or is it just McCaffrey for you?
I believe it was Pro Football Focus's Scott Barrett that mentioned that the Cardinals are running, 28 seconds in between a play, which is the fastest, which also lends itself to why they've allowed the most opponent plays per game each game so far, which is great for the Panthers. And now you ask, who does Kyle Allen go to? And again, with a shallower ADOT, although DJ Moore has the highest target share coming from Cam Newton, we replace him. I think Curtis Samuel is still not only the safest way to go, but a high ceiling option. He still trails in what his production should be in air yards, trailing in fantasy points, that is. So he still has meat on the bone to attack. Christian McCaffrey is obviously the best option, and he's still essentially their number one receiver. But if you told me to pick one, it goes in order. He's not a receiver, but it probably goes in order: Greg Olsen, and then Curtis Samuel, and then DJ Moore.
Okay, so Reeves, obviously we like all these guys. Curtis Samuel was a huge chalk in week one. I didn't exactly understand it. And I feel like in this matchup, he's going to be pretty well ignored. I don't expect him to be, much higher than 7 or 8%. Are you on Samuel, Moore, McCaffrey? What are you doing with this Panthers side, Reeves?
Listen, Kyle Allen Cash Week is about to happen.
Oh, God.
It's definitely happening. 4K on DK, 6K on FanDuel. This is it. I mean, listen, Kyle Allen, he started a game last year. Granted, it was week 17, but he was the QB7 that week. He had 2 passing touchdowns. He gave you that Konami juice. He ran for 40 yards and a touchdown in that game. We saw him. He targeted DJ Moore 8 times in that game that they played. And he targeted Curtis Samuel 4 times. Greg Olsen didn't play, but obviously Greg Olsen's in a great objective spot with the way Arizona's guarded tight ends to start the year, or lack of guarding tight ends, giving up probably the best game TJ Hawkinson will have all season, and then Mandrews lit them up for 100 yards last week. But I mean, all these guys have been good. DJ Moore he's got double-digit targets in both games so far of the year. Now it's with Cam, but he's got 7 or more targets now in 8 of his past 9 games played. He is like their lead wide receiver one. Curtis Samuel had 13 targets last week, and he's the air yards guy, the bounce back variance type guy. It's your tournament guy. He's also a guy I haven't been on so far either. Week 1, he was a complete fade for me with you. And then McCaffrey, the only game McCaffrey's played in his career so far without Cam Newton, his full game, wasn't the Kyle Allen game because he only played 10 snaps. He had a career high 33 touches in that game with Tyler Heinicke starting. So, I mean, they could really get off and just ride, Christian McCaffrey. McCaffrey had that short week where he came off 29 touches to start the season. Really let us down on that Thursday night. If you played him in that Thursday through Sunday slate, or you ran him in captain in the showdowns, you really got a letdown spot. But he's got a long layoff now. Might get a backup quarterback. Probably is going to be back to that, full juice. He still played 100% of the snaps in that Thursday game too for the second week in a row. I'm more excited if Cam Newton doesn't play in this game because, one, Cam is clearly hurt, and he's not a guy that can be effective for fantasy football while he has to rely solely on his arm. He's just been like that his whole career. He had 1 season where he had a magical passing season, and that was an outlier for his career. We need him to be able to use his legs in fantasy football. It makes the offense better. It makes his own stats better. If he's not fully healthy, I just want Kyle Allen to play this week instead of him.
It's funny because you talk about Kyle Allen cash. Have you built any Kyle Allen teams? Anybody?
I haven't, but I bet they're better.
Oh, they look so pretty. Oh, those Kyle Allen teams, man. Like I was doing the XF show earlier today, and we were talking about. I'm like, oh no, I can play this guy and that guy. Oh, this is fun.
He's playing the Cardinals. The Cardinals are the tide that lifts all ships.
All right, so we like Christian McCaffrey. I don't hate Kyle Allen cash. We've got we even have Britt Devine in the chat saying Kyle Allen cash week is 100% happening. I don't blame you guys. On the other side, we've got the guy who's the top overall pick. Kyler Murray's gets a Panthers defense that not great, not bad. David Johnson's a guy that did well in week 1, didn't do great in week 2. Larry Fitzgerald and Christian Kirk's keep seeing just a ton of targets. Daigle, where are you looking on this Cardinal side?
Oh, for the Cardinals, you can go in a lot of places, especially receivers. They continue to run 10 personnel, putting out 4 receivers, but for some odd reason, it is not, even with Michael Crabtree active, it wasn't Keyshawn Johnson that stuck on the field in 3 wide sets. It's actually Damiere Byrd, who's a contrarian option now with Kyler Murray under center. So it goes Larry Fitzgerald, your Christian Kirk, and your Damiere Byrd, and you can go to any of them, especially if they, once again, continue using 4 wide receiver sets. And then obviously David Johnson. The numbers don't show it from last week because he did exit for a few series with a wrist injury, but he was already full practice on Wednesday. He's going to be 100% for this one. So he's also a contrarian option given the fact that he's not lived up to par thus far, despite being their obviously number 1 back.
Yeah, when you look at a guy like David Johnson, I mean, he's priced at 6.8K. If people are paying up, they're going to do it for Dalvin. They're going to do it for Zeke. They're going to do it for, a number of other guys. Like the high-priced running backs are in phenomenal spots this week. So, Reeves, what do you think about this Arizona team? Are you looking at David Johnson? Are you playing one of these receivers? You mentioned Damiere Byrd, 7 targets last week and each of the last 2 weeks. So where are you going with Arizona, Reeves?
Yeah, and remember, Damiere Byrd has history on this show. And he also is in the revenge game spot. So, we've got double, love for Damiere Byrd. Yeah, it was actually Keyshawn Johnson that split time with Michael Crabtree last week. So it looks like Damiere Byrd's role is kind of safe, to start the year. But yeah, we're just looking at the passing game. They're just sitting back and winging it. This is what we hope to see, and this is what we got. For Kyler Murray, he still has been serviceable for fantasy. He's been a QB11 and QB13 to start the year in both games. And that's with no rushing yards, just 17 rushing yards. And it really looks like they're making a concentrated effort, not really to run him. So, I don't think you can count on that, to be something that happens. But just for a guy that has this many passing yards, for him to only have 2 passing touchdowns so far is just completely run on the wrong side of variance. He's averaging a touchdown pass now once every 330 passing yards to start the year. That's the lowest rate for anyone with a touchdown pass. So we still have a couple quarterbacks trying to catch up, pouring out from Mitchell Trubisky. But, so Kyler still has a ceiling that he's got a gear we haven't gotten to yet. For all the yards he's gotten. So he's still in play. We saw the quick reversion to the mean for Christian Kirk from week 1 to week 2. That's something on the board. And then listen, man, the vintage wine of Larry Fitzgerald, back-to-back 100-yard games for the first time since 2015. He's getting shot plays. No, this is not the Larry Fitzgerald of the past 4 years that has been running around and has been the Jason Witten of wide receivers. He's got an 11.4 yard ADOT. He's tied with John Ross for the league lead in catches of 30 or more yards. We're seeing an old school Larry Fitzgerald vertical type guy, and he's still got the ball skills. He was really cheap last week, and I had a lot of good exposure to him on DK with full PPR. Wish I'd have played a little more on FanDuel. And he's still underpriced for the type of value he's getting. He leads the NFL in routes run, and actually this game features the top 5 wide receivers in routes run in it.
You mentioned Fitz kind of being the fine wine. Just so you guys know, before Reeves moved to Sharp Football, he did not talk about fine wines or anything. He has moved on to more refined taste. That's
all grown up now.
Yeah, he's all. That's unbelievable. But Fitz is one of these guys, Daigle, that I just missed on. I have no shares in season long. I have no shares in best ball. I tend not to want guys that are older than I am, especially a lot older than I am. But here we are with Larry Fitzgerald at only 5.1K. I think that's one of the reasons I like this game so much is that these guys are all reasonably priced. We talk about Kyle Allen being cheap. You don't necessarily have to play him because Fitz is 5.1 over on DK, Kirk 5K, Samuel 4.8, DJ Moore 5.9. These guys are all just too cheap for the pace that this game's going to be played at.
And it makes sense if you run Kyle Allen Cash Week as well, because that's your response. That's how you run the game back in a game stack. And it's not even hoping for a game stack. It is going to be back and forth because neither team can stop the other. There are just, as we've talked about, there are so many options in this game, and you want a piece of it. It doesn't help that both Fitzgerald and Kirk are $100 within one another. But as you said, you can go either and be just fine.
All right, let's talk about the Falcons at the Colts. And this game has a total of 47. The Colts, 1.5-point favorites at home. And Reeves, when I look at this game, I can't help but shake the feeling that despite Atlanta having that huge win last week, that this game is going to be overlooked. Let's talk about the Colts side. And I'm always on team, always Julio. Every week he's one of my highest owned receivers. Nothing's going to change this week. Are you on Julio? Are you on Matt Ryan? Are you sampling some Calvin Ridley? What are you doing with this Falcons offense, Reeves?
This is interesting, man. I saw this one on the show sheet, and I'm real curious to get the take. I mean, this game is kind of interesting to me on a lot of levels, just because it doesn't pop to me. So I want to see where you guys take it, because for a couple of reasons. One is I look at the Colts side, and I just look how the Colts have played these two games, and I hate it. I hate how they played these two games for fantasy football. They've really slowed down the pace that they were at from last year. They've asked Jacoby Brissett to kind of just be like a bus driver. He's kind of just, he's living off of these fantasy touchdowns. 61% of his fantasy points are off touchdowns so far, highest rate in the league, but he's 27th in yards, in passing attempts per game, and he's 31st in yards per pass attempt at 6.1. They've turned T.Y. Hilton into like this just like tertiary intermediate target. Now he's got 3 touchdowns, which is kind of hiding the fact that that's going on, but he's got his lowest 8 out of his career by far, just 9.2 yards. He's only averaging 10.8 yards per reception by far, which would be a career low if he had it. But he's still getting pumped with value, 27% of the team targets, which is 11th for all wide receivers. So then they're just grinding and using their offensive line. Marlon Mack's over 20 carries in both of these opening games, and they're really running the football well, and they're probably going to run it well on this Atlanta defense, who the one time they traveled this season got steamrolled on the ground by the Vikings, who are nearly in the realm of capability as the offensive line as the Colts are. So I really worry about the Colts being able to slow this game down, being able to run the ball effectively, being able to keep continuing to do the same things they've done so far these 2 weeks, which is just have Jacoby Brissett just kind of move the sticks and, not really ask them to do a lot. I want fun T.Y. Hilton back. I want T.Y. Hilton running past guys down the field. I want bombs. And we haven't gotten that so far.
I don't know if we're going to get fun T.Y. Hilton, man. He's been taken over by Larry Fitzgerald. Like fun T.Y. he's just not.
They swapped. Yeah, they did the 30 for 30.
This is not fun. I do not like being Larry Fitzgerald morphing into T.Y. Hilton. I'm not comfortable with that at all. Daigle, what do you think about this game?
Honestly, to me, there were only 2 options, and that's the safe option, which is Marlon Mack. I know he was seen on Wednesday carrying around a walking boot. Yes, carrying around a walking boot, not in it, in the locker room. And he did miss practice Wednesday, so we'll find out as the week goes on. But assuming he gets in at least one full session by Sunday, we know Atlanta, how prone they are to being tagged by running backs, still allowing a top 3 rate of fantasy points to running backs through the passing game. And Nyheim Hines has tripled Marlon Mack in targets, 6-2 this season, but Marlon Mack has actually ran 38 routes to Nyheim Hines' 19. He's the passing down back as he was being used last year quietly. So that's the guy that I actually think is safe for this matchup, especially given the concerns we have about pace. But the other option, and you're going to need to get ready to vomit on this one, and it's only tournament play, and he's looked terrible, but boy, like if he's going to do it, it's Devontae Freeman week. If he's going to do it. He's not getting just over a yard after contact, which is the equivalent of getting hit and then falling down and stretching the ball out. But the Colts are still 30th in DVOA against the running back, and he's still getting over half their touches, a majority of their running back snaps. It's not pretty. It sucks. It's going to hurt, but that's the tournament option in this one.
I mean, one of the reasons he's a tournament option, look at this price tag, 4.9K over on DraftKings. I get it. Reeves, you're shaking your head. And the fact that you guys are both touting Devontae Freeman makes me want to cancel this show immediately.
4.9, that's not a tout. That's a, hey, tournaments. That's it.
Oh, God. Reeves, talk to me about Devontae Freeman, or talk to me not about Devontae Freeman. I'm fine with that, too.
As the summer of Devontae Freeman's running back value was going on, in drafts this summer, I remember talking to JJ Zachariason, hashtag humblebrag about that. And we talked about his opening schedule and how just disgusting it was and how he was going to be a guy that was really going to start slow. And it has happened. It's played out exactly like that. Now, you would like to see more from a guy that is supposed to be a locked-in RB2 to have more than 95 yards and 25 touches through 2 weeks, even in tough matchups. You need more. That's the scary part. Like, we could have been living with some 40 to 50-yard games. This is gross what we've gotten so far. But John hit on, it's by far the best matchups he's had out of the first 3 games. Colts are 25th in rushing points allowed to running backs. They're 30th in receiving points allowed. We know that this team, going back to last year, is a team that limits big plays because of the type of Matt Eberflus zone defense they play, and they really limit wide receiver ones. It's kind of just been their MO. They've only allowed 400-yard receiving games since the start of last season. Just 2 of those came to wide receiver one options. It's really just kind of been their MO. That's not something to say fade Julio and run away from Julio. It's just something that's continuously gone on. They've shut down big plays in the receiving game. So, I mean, it really lines up for like, either Devontae Freeman to finally step up and be involved, or these tertiary targets like Austin Hooper to do Austin Hooper things, which is, basically
Speaking of
like
guys
9
that
yards
fall
to catch.
forward, yeah.
Get 9 yards to catch.
I mean, oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's a real weird week. I think Matt Ryan plays well. He's thrown multiple touchdowns now in 6 games going back to last season. I think he'll still get his. Just on the Falcons side of the ball, it might be more of a sum of all parts thing where you just play Matt Ryan on that side. But I do think Freeman at the price tag, and given what the 2 matchups he had, is a tournament play, and kind of go back to the well type play. But I mean, there's still a lot of question marks. That offensive line clearly is not what we thought in terms of upgrade that we had.
Yeah. All right. Let's talk about some of the new quarterbacks that are starting this week. We could have as many as 5 different guys making, replacement starts for their quarterback. Of course, we've already talked about Kyle Allen likely filling in for Cam Newton. We've got Daniel Jones, Danny Dimes. He's going to be starting for the Giants. Luke Falk against the Jets. I didn't know there was a person named Luke Falk. That was really cool to learn last week. Teddy Bridgewater, he's going to be starting for the Saints, although they've already come out and said that they're going to use 2 quarterbacks because thanks, Sean Payton. And then Mason Rudolph starting for the Steelers. So, John, I'm going to start with you. What quarterback are you looking most forward to watching in this group?
I wouldn't say I'm looking forward to it, but I'm intrigued the most by the Steelers. This is a team that just swapped their first-round pick this year, despite being 0-2 right now, because they have that much confidence in Mason Rudolph. And now we know he's going to we don't know, but we're assuming that after that Moncrief drop, that was basically a reception for the other team.
Which one?
He shoved it into the defender's hand for a pick, just shoved it for an interception. So we assume James Washington, who is obviously, as we know, Rudolph's college teammate at Oklahoma State, will also be in 3 wide sets there for the Steelers. So I think it's business as usual for the Steelers going in. Teddy Bridgewater, he's been average. I do think Sean Payton can create something with him, but also I think we're going to see more Taysom Hill than we believe we're going to see. And then, as you said, Danny Dimes, it's really just comes down to Sterling Shepard and Cody Latimer's availability for me, because that might put them in a situation where even if they don't want to, they have to let Jones throw a lot, which despite it being the Bucs' terrible defense, that could be bad news for a rookie's first start.
Yeah, and I'm going to be watching Daniel Jones. Reeves, I got to ask you, are you on team Danny Dimes, or are you on anti-Danny Dimes as the nickname?
No, my son is a Giants fan, so I immediately ordered him the Danny Dimes shirt that RotoWare dropped today, which was a phenomenal shirt, and they do great work. That was a free plug, RotoWare. No, it's gonna be fun to watch him. I'm real curious because this Bucs defense has been good out of the box, but they faced an injured Cam Newton and a Jimmy Garoppolo in like his first real like live fire, outside of a preseason climate, in over a year. So, I mean, I'm not really full of belief in them in their defensive turnaround yet. But I am curious because Todd Bowles is going to dial up some pressure for sure. And Danny Dimes was not a guy that handled pressure well in college. He didn't have a lot of playmakers around him either. So I'm just real curious to see how it is. First start on the road, I'm going to take a wait and see approach with Daniel Jones. I'm not going to roll over his preseason where he had really no pressure and roll over those stats. But I mean, it's a move that needed to come early in the season, and it did. Like John said, though, I'm really curious to see how the Steelers operate, because this is a team that has a really great offensive line. We're invested in their running back. We're invested heavily in their lead receiver, and Juju Smith-Schuster. A lot of people like Vance McDonald, who had 2 touchdowns from Mason Rudolph in the second half of that game. But more importantly, I think that Mason Rudolph allows the Steelers to do things on offense that we wouldn't be able to do with Ben Roethlisberger. Ben Roethlisberger was a guy who just lined up and spread shotgun sets, and they ran the same thing on offense every single play. He had 2 play action passes on 65 dropbacks so far this season. 2. Mason Rudolph used play action on 30% of his dropbacks in the second half of that game. The Steelers have just a door open now to run a more versatile offense and do things that they weren't going to do. Is it going to be better without Ben Roethlisberger? I'm not saying that Mason Rudolph is an option that's going to elevate the offense like Ben Roethlisberger would, but it allows them to at least take something that was broken and not working and do something different and not keep running their heads into the wall like we were getting for 6 quarters of Steeler football. And that injects new life into them. And of course, we get the, James Washington, OSU connection, and Washington ran 20 pass routes last week. Deontay Johnson kind of settled in with them 3 being the 3 wide receivers at the end of that game. We'll see if it rolls over as that they start, along Juju. because it looked like Deontay Johnson also had worked his way in. But James Washington's only had 9 targets all year, and he already leads the Steelers. Leads the Steelers in air yards on 9 targets only, 22 yards averaged up the target. I mean, we're talking about money balls. And this is the 49ers defense, too, that I'm not ready to fully, inject that I believe in what
they are. They have been playing so far above their heads, and I understand.
I mean, the pass rush has been legit for 2 weeks, and that's the thing that they needed to improve on. And they've been getting after both quarterbacks. But again, the Bucs and the Bengals, we need more. The sample's got to grow.
Every pass rush looks good against the Bucs and the Bengals.
Yeah, the sample's got to grow.
Andy Dalton, that's all you need to hear.
Oh, Jameis Winston's about to throw for about 1 billion yards this week. That's all I know. You mentioned James Washington. John, are you a believer in the fact that, one, since Dante Moncrief has, skillets for hands, and 2, James Washington had a connection with Mason Rudolph in the preseason. Are you a believer in James Washington emerging soon?
I am. I think he emerges as early as this week. Juju Smith-Schuster, actually, in all this noise, has sort of become the contrarian option, even despite leading the Steelers in their target share and being obviously the most prepared receiver to break out immediately, not break out or continue his success immediately, no matter who's under center. But yeah, I've toyed with, it's not going to happen, but I've toyed with Kyle Allen and James Washington cash lineups. And if you want to make some nasty stuff, that's the lineup. But like I said, cash is far
Why
too
do you hate money?
Even at 3,600, it's far too much. But he's a great tournament option, almost too obvious.
Yeah. One thing about Juju too is, we worried about in the preseason, how's Juju going to play being the wide receiver 1 and Antonio Brown. Juju still run over 60% of his routes from the slot in both of the starting 2 games, which is something we didn't expect based on how he was used in the preseason.
All right, let's move on to talk about a team that does not have a new quarterback, and at the rate everything's going now, they won't have a new quarterback for until I'm dead. Let's talk about the Patriots. Look, obviously a massive game last week, 43-0 over the Dolphins. They've given up 3 total points all season. Am I saying that right? Yeah, 3 points all season. They are outscoring their opponents 76-3. And meanwhile, last week we had a game where I was on air and I said, not only do I not really want to play any of these guys, even if I did, I don't know who it would be. Now, once they had only 3 running backs healthy, Sony Michel sort of went to the forefront of the Patriots as far as I was concerned. But last week they put up 43 points, and nobody outside of their defense was fantasy relevant. Nobody had more than 83 total yards, despite them scoring 43 points. And Reeves, I want to talk to you about what the hell do we do with the Patriots moving forward? Because they're going to put up points. We know that, but there are just so many mouths to feed that I'm struggling to figure out who to play from this offense every single week.
You play Tom Brady. I mean, you just play Tom Brady, man.
Who do you pair him with?
He's 42 years old and has been on fire. I really hate the way this has developed for Tom Brady because I was a full fade Brady guy all summer. This dude had his worst fantasy season in 20 years last year. He was losing Gronk, rolling in all these new receivers. It looked like they were going to start the first-round rookie N'Keal Harry, some Jacoby Myers with Edelman. This is this is the year to fade Brady, finally. He's 42 years old. Then he gets Gordon back. They trade for Antonio Brown, and it's full systems go again. It's just he's lit it up. He's in the QB7 and the QB4 to start the year through 2 weeks. They're facing a Jets team that they've just smoked. They've won 10 consecutive games at home against the Jets. The Jets are starting the guy you just heard of in Luke Falk on Monday night. I'm
still not convinced it's a real person.
The Jets are in such a bad spot that they have a lower implied team total than the Dolphins this week. That's just unbelievable. But you talk about the wide receivers, and they played them all last week. The thing is that Antonio Brown, if his role is going to grow, we could have a situation where it was like Marquise Brown week 1, where Marquise Brown only ran so many routes, but it was a clear thing where you say, hey, they drafted this dude in the first round. They brought him in for a package week 1, and it's only going to grow. Antonio Brown only played 24 snaps, but he received a touch or a target on 38% of his snaps, which is the highest usage rate of any wide receiver in week 2. We know that they signed him 5 hours after no one said he was going to sign with any team. And so he's going to play more snaps as we move on. Will it be this week or as it goes? But it's going to keep growing. The Jets can't stop anyone. They actually benched their best cornerback, in air quotes, Tremaine Johnson last week. Greg Williams is going to have a dude 30 yards off the ball, like we saw on Odell's, 89-yard touchdown. So, there's run after the catch possibilities. It could be a big pop back, too, for Gordon, because Gordon played 57 snaps last week. It just turns out that, Xavier Howard actually can still play a little bit. He's one Dolphins player that still can play a little bit. He shadowed Josh Gordon and did a pretty good job on him last week. That he was kind of the one guy that disappeared. He was on the field for 57 snaps. Like you said, it's tough. It's tough to pick out, one of these guys. I think you just play Brady and you play a Pats defense again. If you want to get cute, you can play Sony, but he's just a jag, man. Like Sony's just a dude.
I know, but 21 carries last week, it definitely gives me a little bit of interest. But you talk about these receivers and, who the hell do we play? They had 7 different guys between 2 and 4 catches. I know you mentioned, Reeves, that Tom Brady is the guy that you wish you hadn't faded in preseason. I'm the other way. I wish I hadn't loaded up on Julian Edelman, because when Jacoby Myers was the only guy they had to compete for targets, I was feeling pretty damn good about Julian Edelman. Now he's just he's like the third and a half option on this team. Daigle, what are you doing with this Patriots team? Because, dude, I'm frustrated by it. That's why I put him on the show sheet. I'm frustrated by this team.
They could score 40 points, and you wouldn't know the difference from any other players. As Reeves said, it's pretty much Brady and their defense, and that's about it. I think Ian Hartitz of Roto World was the first one to tweet this out, but Sony Michel hasn't broken a single tackle all year. He's looked terrible. We're
tied. We're tied.
You're still feeding off of his one run that was negated. It didn't even count. It just got called back in the preseason, but he looked so damn good on it that we're still going back to the well every single week. But what we didn't expect for Sony Michel was Rick Burkhead being involved on 35% of their snaps. That's what throws a wrench into everything. Damian Harris doesn't even need to be active for everyone to just sort of have a trickle-down effect and have their snaps and touches taken away every single week. And in this game, yes, Antonio Brown's role will grow, but I don't expect it to be the following week after playing only 24 snaps whenever the Patriots are favored by nearly 22 points.
All right, let's move on because I'm already sick of talking about the Patriots. My kids stayed the night at my mom's house yesterday, and she sent me a picture, and he's decked out in Patriots gear, and I'm not sure how I feel about it, but I know the answer isn't good. All right, let's talk about some of our favorite sneaky game stacks. I think one of the ones we talked about, Panthers at Cardinals, that's one of my favorite under-the-radar ones. Texans, Chargers is another one. Lions and Eagles is a game that I don't think I like, but I think I might like a few pieces here and there. Reeves, what are some of your other favorite sneaky game stacks?
Yeah, I mean, you forgot to say why that your kids were gone, because you were out at the Busch Stadium there, like Bob's Tewksbury on the mound out there, St. Louis Cardinals lore throwing. You got it over the plate too, man. You got it there. Get in there in the air is the key. That's what
it was funny because I talked to Matt Smith and I talked to STL Cards, who both thrown out the first pitch. Cards in St. Louis, Matt Smith down in Tampa, and they both said, just don't miss low. Because if you miss, then you're bouncing them in. So get out there, and I said, all right, whatever I do, it ain't going to hit the damn plate. If I hit somebody in the third row, so be it. But it ain't going to be hitting the plate. But, yeah, no, it's a good time. But, yeah, he woke up in Patriots gear and basically ruined my night. But what are you going to do, man?
But going back to the stat game, so a game I liked, I think it's going to float under. So we got a game with 2 really good quarterbacks, and it's on the late slate, and it's Chargers-Texans. I like this Chargers-Texans game a lot, and I don't think anyone's really going to be drawn to it. So last week with no Hunter Henry and Mike Williams playing just 64% of the snaps, and that could definitely go up. I mean, they just jammed targets to Keenan Allen. And he was a guy who already had 30% of the targets in week 1. He came back and had 42% of the team targets, against Darius Slay. They're going to, he comes back. He's got a way better matchup against this Texans secondary that hasn't really stopped anyone through the air. They allowed DJ Shark, the Sharknado, or, the Baby Shark, or whatever the song is that people are talking about. Whatever.
Wait, you don't know Baby Shark?
I do know Baby Shark.
7 kids.
I have a bunch of kids. I know what it is. But, so Keenan Allen is stackable in this game. On the other side, we know we can always play Hopkins and Watson. And, Casey Hayward's a guy also that has not come out the gates. We talk about these cornerbacks that we typically would try to avoid. He has not come out the gate strong. We've got the RB1 in this game, and Austin Eckler, who's had over 50 yards rushing and receiving, plus a touchdown in each of the first 2 games. He's the first back since Brian Westbrook in 2006 to do that. On the flip side, we got some regression candidates too, and Will Fuller. Will Fuller's 9th in the league in the air yards. He's got a 24-yard air dot. He's going against some guy named Brandon Faison. I don't even know. He's a second-year guy. He ran a 4.53 out of Virginia Tech.
He was roommates with Luke Falk. Nobody knows who they are.
I mean, so Will Fuller's going to be going up against that guy. And Will Fuller is a guy that's playing all the snaps still. It's still him. He's had 2 down weeks, but he's running as many pass routes as DeAndre Hopkins. It's been QT and Stills kind of splitting that reps since QT came back last week. They kind of split reps together. They each ran 17 pass routes. So, I mean, I look at Will Fuller. He's stackable in this game. Old Phillip is stackable in this game. He's thrown for 333 and 293 to start the season. Again, Houston was a team we targeted in the pass game last year when you actually faced a real quarterback. Remember, them and Indy just faced 10 backup quarterbacks last year. But they're a team that we could target. And then so I think that we see reversion also back to week 1, where this game sets up more to be the frustrating Houston's backfield sets up to be more of a Duke Johnson game than a Carlos Hyde game this week when they flip snaps from week 1 to week 2. It sets up to be more of a Duke Johnson game. So we've always targeted pass catching backs against the Chargers, and it's going to be more of an up-tempo game. So, I mean, I look at that game. I think it's got pieces we already love. They're ranked highly in fantasy football, but no one's really going to be drawn towards.
Yeah, you mentioned Will Fuller. That's the guy. Every freaking week I play Will Fuller, man. And, 3 or 4 weeks out of the year, it goes well, and I think this is going to be one of those weeks. Daigle, are you interested in this game, or are you interested in some other games? What do you think here about some sneaky game stacks?
Yeah, I'll play devil's advocate and mention one, but quickly I want to hit on Keenan Allen. What makes him so interesting is not just the target share this year, but the fact that he's actually their downfield threat as well. Like, this dude had an 8.6 ADOT last year. He's at 13.2 this season with 329 air yards through 2 games. Like, he's not only their number 1 receiver, but he's being used like John Ross-like. It's quite crazy considering the history of his career in the slot, being used shallow and over the middle, probably out of necessity. But another one that I like less than that one, admittedly, but another one is the Steelers 49ers. It has a lot of question marks, but one of the question marks isn't pace. So we need efficiency to happen, which is, again, a question mark with Mason Rudolph's first start happening. But the 49ers offenses look great. Jimmy Garoppolo hasn't even had to do much. Like, if you watch him, he's just watching the offense open up and just hitting the open guy now. And we have who their number 1 wideout actually is, George Kittle. His salary just dropped $1,200 on DraftKings for no good reason. Like, yes, the production hasn't been there so much so as last year, but he's still George Kittle. Like, it's almost not even almost. It is a cash game option if you want to go that route at tight end this week. You just need, like I said, Mason Rudolph to answer back. But that's what makes us sneaky, is playing the variables and how volatile it could be.
Yeah, you mentioned George Kittle. That's the guy that in season long I've been annoying everybody because I've just been trying to trade for him.
It's buy low week is what it is.
Yeah, it's buy low week with him. Here, Reeves, I'll just ask you right now, who are some of your buy low candidates right now?
Like you talked about, I mean, Devontae Freeman was a guy on that list. I think just cleared out. I mean, I have a lot more question marks with him. Guys like Will Fuller, we talked about. You're just looking for those, regression spots. Those guys that started off, low. I'll tell you who's not a buy low that I kind of stumped for is Joe Mixon. He's not a buy low. And he almost had a bunny touchdown, but I really thought that I was high on the Bengals offense coming in higher than most because I thought Zach Taylor would do what he's done so far, that they would run a ton of 11 personnel, throw the ball a lot. But I thought that would be like by proxy, like make kind of mask their offensive line a little bit. Like they would just run against lighter boxes, and boy, that has not been the truth at all. He has 27 rushing yards through 2 games, 27. And there's just no light at the end of the tunnel with that running game. He's not being used in the passing game. It's just a thing that I'm ready to say that I was wrong. I like what they've done with the offense. I know that they just sucked last week, but the passing yards are still there. But I mean, they just are a team that just their functionality running the football is just completely non-existent. If they're not going to throw to him, I am lacking the upside for him. I'll tell you a guy I'd buy high on is Kenny Galladay. If anyone wants to sell him high, I'll buy high on Kenny Galladay. Dude, Stafford's playing really well. He had a broken back last year. He's even in a tougher, slower paced game. He averaged over 8 yards per pass attempt last week. Kenny G gets the Eagles this week.
Yum.
He's still, man, he's ranked way too low in the industry. He's like in industry ranks are like around the wide receiver 20 again. He should be right on the fringe of wide receiver 1 play just about every week.
In June, I believe, Reeves and I sat at a Sheraton Hotel bar in the wee hours of the morning.
How big time are you guys? Man, oh man.
And it's a Sheraton. Calm down. And it came back to him, his best ball app, and he was like, okay, do I go Joe Mixon or Odell Beckham? And I was like, come on, it's Joe Mixon, obviously. And how's that looking now for us, Reeves?
Dude, I'm
Heart of Darkness.
It's really funny because you mentioned Joe. I mentioned I was trying to buy George Kittle. It's because I'm trying to sell Joe Mixon for George Kittle in a lot of my leagues, and that's also not. It's not even a lot. It's just my biggest league. I'm trying to dump Joe Mixon for basically anybody. So if you're
Josh Jacobs already ruining his sell high moment. He already ruined it for us. We can't even sell them high now.
I tweeted after week 1 and I got yelled at. And it's like, no, guys, come on.
Everybody loves them some Josh Jacobs. Reeves, it's been good to have you back, man. Should tell everybody where you're at, what you've been doing.
Yeah, I'm over at Sharp Football now. I know not everyone has found that through 2 weeks this season, but check out Sharp Football Analysis. We revamped the site, got a lot of things on there for sports betting props, and I'm doing all the fantasy side myself. And just to circle back to what I threw out at the beginning of the show, if you want to use the promo code SHARP25, you can get 25% off anything you want to sign up for, whether it be a week pass, monthly pass, season long, for betting, props, my own fantasy stuff. Go and check that out.
Yeah, definitely be checking that out. It is one of the very few sites that I use for research. John, where can everybody find you, man?
We can go to Roto World to find me and the rest of the crew on Sunday mornings especially. First, you can go and get the Roto World podcast on iTunes. That's easiest. You can do that from your couch right now. We come out every Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, I believe. And then Sunday morning, we have a show, noon to noon 50. Feel free to tune in on Twitch, YouTube, and NBC Sports, where Josh Norris and a rotating cast of the crew just come on in and answer all your start and sit questions for free, too.
There you go. And, of course, you can find me right here Sunday morning. I'm on for the Morning Wood with Hoop and Big T. We know we all love you having. We love you guys being here, but we got to get out of here right now. We got to make way for Britt Devine and Daniel Kelly. The Pro Football Focus Show is up next. Make sure you stay tuned for that. Want to thank John and Rich for joining me. Thank you guys for listening. We'll catch y'all later. Peace.